Here is your seat to 1925, where a nickel ride, a loud jazz room, and a cracked baseball radio could shape an entire week. We will show real prices, real jobs, and real nights out, told in sharp little stories that stick. You will feel the rush of new roads, the hush of a speakeasy door, and the weight of a pay packet on Friday. Stay to the end, and you will leave with a full picture of the century ago. Not just the myth. 1. What a dollar bought in 1925. Pick up a 1925 dollar, and you're holding real weight. On average, that single bill could buy roughly what $18 or $19 cover today. Wages were smaller, prices were lower, and every coin mattered. A streetcar ride in many cities cost 5 cents. A daily newspaper was 2 or 3 cents. A loaf of bread hovered around 10 cents. A dozen eggs often sat between 30 and 40 cents. Coffee by the pound could be bought for less than 50 cents, depending on the store and the city. Rent told another story. A modest apartment in a working neighborhood might run $15 to $30 per month, but quality and location swung that number fast. Heat and coal added surprise costs in winter. Many households tracked every penny in small ledgers to avoid shortfalls near the end of the month. Clothes lasted longer because they had to. A man's work shirt might be $1 or $2. Good leather shoes were a real purchase, not an impulse. Women stretched dresses with careful mending and seasonal refitting. Children wore hand-me-downs until seams surrendered. Tailors and cobblers stayed busy because replacement costs more than repair. Entertainment was small but regular. A movie ticket could be a quarter. A soda fountain treat might be a nickel. People saved coins in jars for a Saturday show, or a Sunday streetcar to the park. Tips were nickels and dimes, and they were noticed. Medical bills were the worry that sat in the drawer. Office visits could sound cheap by modern standards, yet one doctor's fee could erase a week's careful savings. That is one reason families kept home remedies on hand and delayed care when they thought they could. Credit was creeping in. Installment plans let a household bring home a radio or a sewing machine and pay a few dollars each month. The new convenience felt modern, but missed payments brought quick trouble. Storekeepers knew who paid on time. City to city, prices shifted. Boston and New York ran higher than many Midwestern towns. Rural families leaned on gardens, eggs, and preserved fruit to cut cash spending. Put simply, a dollar had bite, but most families never had enough of them to feel safe. 2. Short lives, big risks. A century ago, life ran on a shorter clock. Average life expectancy hovered in the mid-50s. Men reached about 53 years, women around 54. Many never made it that far. Heart disease, pneumonia, and tuberculosis were constant threats. The Spanish flu had just torn through towns and farms, leaving grief in its wake and nerves still raw. Medicine looked very different. Antibiotics were not yet part of daily care. A bad cut could turn into a serious infection. A winter cold could slide into pneumonia with little warning. Hospitals existed, but small communities leaned on general practitioners, midwives, and home remedies. People kept liniment, poultices, and aspirin in the cupboard because a doctor's visit cost real money and travel time. Childhood was fragile. Infant and child mortality rates were far higher than they are today. Measles, diphtheria, and whooping cough could sweep through a school and stop classroom sounds for weeks. Vaccines were fewer. Public health nurses pushed hand washing and clean milk. Cities chlorinated their water and built sewer lines, but progress arrived unevenly. Rural areas often lagged, and outhouses and wells sat close together. Birth carried a heavy risk. Maternal deaths ran in the hundreds per 100,000 deliveries. Many births took place at home. A midwife might arrive by trolley or wagon with a bag and a calm voice. Hospitals helped when they were close and affordable. Yet infection control was still maturing, and pain relief was limited. Families told stories of long labors, neighbors boiling water, and quiet prayers in the next room. Work could shorten a life. Mines, mills, shipyards, rail yards, and early factories took a toll on lungs, backs, and hands. Safety rules were improving, but accidents were common. Coal dust scarred chests, farm tools bite fingers. A fall from a scaffold could end a paycheck forever. Few workers had strong insurance. Families relied on savings clubs, church aid, and relatives. Food and housing mattered as much as pills. Clean milk meant fewer sick children. Fresh air and warm rooms helped those fighting respiratory disease. Yet coal smoke hung over many neighborhoods, and crowded tenements spread coughs fast. People adapted. They cooked broths, aired bedding, and sat family members by sunny windows. They watched fevers night after night. Survival was a craft learned at home, sharpened by habit and carried by hope. 3. Prohibition's daily workaround. On paper, the rule was simple. After January 1920, no one could make, sell, or haul liquor. In daily life, people find gaps. The Volstead Act carved out exceptions for religious wine and medicinal whiskey. That tiny doorway became a hallway. Doctors wrote slips for illness. Pharmacists filled them for cash. Clergy ordered communion stock that sometimes stretched well beyond the altar. Homes turned into small workshops. In kitchens and basements, folks mixed raisin wine, hard cider, and sugar to brew. Grape bricks arrived with printed warnings that read like winks. Do not dissolve in water and store in a cool place for 20 days, or it may ferment. People did exactly that. Some tried a copper still in the shed. Others bought near beer and spiked it. Accidents followed. Stills exploded. Bad batches are blinded or killed. Government denaturing of industrial alcohol pushed poison into the supply, and bootleggers could not always clean it well. Cities learned the password game. A barber shop might be a bar if you knew to ask for a certain tonic. A locked door behind a bakery could open with 2 knocks and a name. Inside, a small band swung, ice clinked, and a waiter moved fast because raids were always possible. Drinks were simple and covered rough spirits: gin with citrus, whiskey with soda, rum with cola. Bartenders hid bottles in hollow walls, trap tables, and false shelves. Smuggling fed the bars. Fast boats raced from the Bahamas and Canada to Rum Row, a line of ships that sat just outside territorial waters. Small skiffs shuttled crates to hidden coves. On the Great Lakes, night runs slipped from Windsor to Detroit. Trucks rolled at dawn with false floors. The Coast Guard chased and sometimes looked away. Bribes traveled like whispers. Work followed the money. Runners drove, lookouts whistled, and accountants laundered cash through car lots, laundries, and soda shops. Crime groups grew. Chicago had names everyone knew. Smaller towns had their own quiet bosses. Not every operation was hard-edged, though. Many rooms felt like mixed company. Women who had been turned away from saloons found seats and dance floors. That changed the mood and the music. 4. Inside a speakeasy night picture, a street that looks asleep. A bakery window goes dark, a back door cracks open, and a doorman studies faces like a ledger. You give the name a friend swore was current. He nods once, and the stairwell swallows city noise. The room is smaller than the stories. Low ceiling, plaster tired in the corners, tables packed elbow to elbow. A red bulb above the exit throws a soft circle on the wall. Someone has painted the trim to hide scuffs from last week's raid. The floor creaks near the bandstand. No sign says bar, yet everyone knows where to look. Music does not wait for you. The pianist rolls, the right hand sparkles over a steady left. The cornet answers in full voice. A snare drum snaps like a matchstick. Musicians get paid in cash at the end of the last set, so they play like rent is due in the morning. Between numbers, they watch the door the way cooks watch a stove. Drinks move fast to keep questions slow. The gin is young and brash, so the bartender squeezes citrus to tame it. Highballs come in thick glasses that forgive rough ice. Rum finds cola or ginger. Whiskey takes soda, sometimes coffee. Egg whites give foam that covers sharp edges. Herbs and bitters do work quite. Look around. A stenographer in a beaded dress and a machinist in a clean collar share a small table. 2 couples try the Charleston and almost collide. Men favor narrow ties. Women test shorter hems and bob cuts that make turning look easy. Smoke hangs low, scented with clove and cheap tobacco. Laughter climbs over the melody and falls back in time. House rules keep. The lights on. Speak low. Tip in cash. Do not ask names you do not need. Keep your hat ready. If the piano switches to a simple vamp, that is the warning. If a waiter sets a glass down hard without a smile, that is the second one. On the third sign, the wall panel near the back swings, and the crowd thins as if the room itself is breathing out. Owners pay for silence. The cop on the corner likes $2 and a sandwich. The landlord likes his envelope on Thursday. The Iceman knocks twice on delivery nights. Everybody pretends this is about music, but it runs on timing, passwords, and exits that do not appear on the plan. 5. Assembly line America. Walk into a big plant in the mid-1920s, and the first sound is the line itself. Chains pull, gears click, a bell marks the start, and men fall into places they could reach with their eyes closed. Parts arrive in trays. Each tray means one motion, maybe two, never 10. A wrench turns the same nut again and again until your hands know the thread by feel. This system did not appear by luck. Managers timed steps with stopwatches. They cut wasted movement, lowered benches, and stacked bins at elbow height. Interchangeable parts let a fender meet a body without hand filing. Gauges checked tolerances. If a piece did not pass, it left the flow. Quality lived in jigs and fixtures, more than in a single master craftsperson. Pay drew people in. Ford had set a famous $5 day years earlier. Wages were still attractive compared with many shops. A steady envelope on Friday meant rent on time and meat on Sunday. Yet the price was speed. Foremen watched for slow hands. When orders rose, the line moved faster, not longer. You felt it in your shoulders by noon. Skill changed shape. Old trades had prized broad knowledge. The line prized rhythm and stamina. A recent immigrant could learn a station in an afternoon and hit the quota by week's end. That opened doors, but also capped growth. Promotions favored a few. Many stayed at the same post, month after month, with only a small bump for time served. Safety lagged behind output. Guards on belts improved, yet hot rivets still flew. Oil slicks made the steps risky. Ear protection was rare. A missed signal could pinch fingers between dies. First aid rooms saw crushed thumbs, strained backs, and metal in eyes. The cost of a mistake was paid in flesh. Companies tried to keep people from quitting. Turnover had been brutal in earlier years. So plants built cafeterias, ball fields, and brass bands. Some offered English classes and night courses. Social workers checked on families and pushed thrift. The message was clear: be productive, be loyal, and stay put. Communities formed along the line. Black workers often landed in foundries and paint shops. Women handled light assembly and inspection. Southern migrants learned city time by the whistle. Lunch pails lined up on the same beam every day. 6. The Model T weekend. By the mid-1920s, 1920s, a car meant freedom. You could touch. A modest family might own a used Model T, brush the dust from its fenders on Saturday, and head for open country after church. Roads were a mix of brick stretches, gravel, and rutted dirt. Drivers packed a hand pump, a patch kit, and a length of rope because flats and ditches were routine. Starting could be a ritual. Many cars now had electric starters, yet plenty still relied on a front crank. Owners learned to set the spark, pull gently to find compression, and then give a firm swing with an open hand to avoid a broken thumb. Kids watched this dance like it was a magic trick. When the engine caught, neighbors heard the chuff and waved. Maps turned into prized possessions. The American Automobile Association printed regional booklets that listed mileposts, landmarks, and a few reliable bridges. Some guides told you to turn left at the Red Barn or bear right at the Lone Elm. Road signs were improving, but the system was far from standard. A wrong fork could add hours. Fuel stops looked new. Small stations with glass-top pumps stepped into view along busy routes. The attendant wore a cap, wiped the windshield, and checked the radiator. Oil dripped from many engines, so drivers often bought a quart. In winter, owners drained water at night to keep blocks from cracking, then poured it back in the morning and hoped the car would warm quickly. The car changed dating and family time. Couples could escape a parlor full of listening relatives and share a quiet lane by the river. Parents piled blankets, a picnic tin, and a ball, then steered to a park that had once been out of reach. National parks saw more visitors. A tent next to a touring car felt like a frontier of your own making. Not everyone shared the same ease on the road. Some towns posted hostile signs at sundown. Black travelers learned safe routes by word of mouth and careful planning. Immigrant families recognized the same limits in certain counties and kept to friendly stops where the owner spoke their language. Accidents taught hard lessons. Cities added stop signs, center lines, and corner signals. Police handed out the first real tickets for speeding and reckless turns. Insurance agents found work, and driving schools began to appear. Even with all the bumps, the weekend drive stuck. It reorganized the calendar, redrew the map of leisure, and planted the seed of suburbs that would soon grow along the new, smoother highways. 7. Paved roads, gas pumps, roadside eats. In the early 1920s, the map began to grow a skeleton of hard surfaces. States poured concrete and laid brick where ruts had ruled. The Federal Highway Act of 1921 sent money and standards to road crews, and surveyors strung lines across counties that had only known wagon tracks. In 1926, the new black and white shield appeared with numbers that actually meant something. Route 66 was marked, even if long stretches remained dirt for years. Paving changed how towns behaved. A smooth strip that reached the courthouse square could lift a county seat into steady trade. Farmers planned trips around dry days before. Now they could haul cream and eggs in the rain and reach a buyer before noon. School buses took wider loops. Doctors could make 2 or 3 extra house calls before dark. Fuel had to be easy. The tall, visible pump with a glass cylinder showed the gasoline level before it flowed into your tank. Hand cranks squeaked with each turn. Small stations added air hoses, a water spigot, and a rack of fan belts. The best ones kept a box of valve stems and patches because tires gave out often. Attendants learned faces and nicknames, wiped windshields without being asked, and wrote charges in thin receipt books. Neon crept in at dusk. Letters buzzed over doorways that promised oil, tires, or a hot plate. The glow pulled travelers the way porch lights pull moths. Between towns, poles carried wires along the shoulder. The road gained its own kind of skyline. Food followed the car. Lunch wagons that had served factory gates rolled to highway edges and became diners with stools, coffee pots, and pie in glass domes. White Castle worked out a system for small square burgers and spotless tile fronts, starting in 1921. Independent grills copied what worked. A short-order cook could fry onions, turn patties, and keep an ear on the bell that marked another car at the curb. Sleep needed a fix, too. Auto camps set aside plots with a shared bathhouse and a place to cook. Soon, owners added small cabins with a single bulb, a cot, and a quilt. Families liked parking outside their door. Managers liked cash up front. The motor court was born. With more cars came rules. Painted center lines kept drivers from drifting. Warning signs are named sharp curves. Some bridges charged a few coins at a gate. Road maps got better, and service stations handed them out with a smile and a pencil mark to send you around the washout. 8. City moves. Country losses. In 1920, the census recorded a turning point. More Americans now live in towns and cities than on farms. The pull was clear. City streets offered factory wages, lights at night, and a streetcar to work. A young person could leave a small county seat on a morning train and find a boarding house and a job by the weekend. The move felt like progress even when the room was cramped and the foreman was hard. Back home, fields told a tougher tale. War demand had pushed farmers to plant fence to fence. Banks were friendly, while prices were high. After the armistice, wheat and cotton values slid, while loan payments stayed the same. Tractors and new plows boosted output, which only deepened the glut. Many families worked more acres and earned less cash. The South faced extra blows. The boll weevil chewed through cotton and left lint light and bowls empty. Sharecroppers carried debts into each new season and settled up at the company store on paper that never seemed to come out even. Black tenants had the fewest. Choices in the thin end of every bargain. A bad harvest meant another move to another shack with the same ledger waiting. In the Midwest and Plains, the math looked different, but hurt the same. Wheat prices fell, rail freight still cost plenty, and rain skipped entire months. When a bank officer arrived in a dust coat to inspect security, families knew what that could mean. Foreclosure notices went up on gates where children had learned to ride. Auctions drew neighbors who bid a nickel on a plow, then handed it back at sunset so the owner could try again next spring. Rural life adjusted where it could. Co-ops pooled milk and grain to bargain for a better price, County agents taught contour plowing, seed selection, and silo use. Farm wives stretched gardens and jars of preserves, traded eggs for calico, and kept a radio on the shelf when power was available. Many homes still lacked electricity, so chores ran on daylight, kerosene, and muscle. 9. Home. Sweet tenement. Walk up a narrow stairwell that smells like soap, cabbage, and coal dust. The handrail is polished by years of palms. A door opens into 2 rooms that must do the work of 4. A stove stands close to the window, so smoke can find a way out. The stovepipe rattles when a cart passes below. Families stack space like boxes. A curtain becomes a wall at night so parents can claim a little privacy. A fold-out bed travels back to the wall by morning to clear a path to the sink. A crib lives under the table until supper. Trunks hold winter coats and also serve as seats when cousins visit on Sundays. Heat is a daily task. Coal arrives in canvas sacks, spills into a bin, and leaves a black ring on the floor, no matter how careful you are. Children learn not to touch the flap on the stove. Ash goes out in a metal pail before school. In summer, the stove sleeps and everything feels easier until the air turns thick in July. Sound ignores doors. A violin was being practiced 2 floors up. The baby next door coughs at midnight. Streetcar bells ring just late enough to rearrange your sleep. On payday, you hear a radio from the building across the alley and catch a ball game between frying onions and the clink of plates. Bathrooms are located down the hall on many floors. A key hangs on a nail, tied to a string of corks so it does not wander. Hot water is a gift on cold mornings and a rumor when the boiler is tired. Mothers plan baths around boiler strength, not around the clock. Laundry requires a system. Monday is for soaking. Tuesday is for scrubbing. Wednesday is for ironing. That rhythm keeps arguments from starting at the wash tub. Lines stretch across kitchens and drift above beds. Shirts sway like slow flags. In winter, they dry near the stove and leave the room smelling clean. Neighbors lean on each other. A tenant watches children while a mother takes a shift. Someone lends sugar and expects nothing more than a cup of tea next week. The super knows every name and every leak. He carries a wrench, a pencil, and the rent ledger. 10. Electricity, phones, and the house chore shift. Flip a switch in a 1920s apartment, and 2 things might happen. A bulb glows at once, or nothing happens, because the building has not been wired yet. Cities moved first. Rural homes often waited years for lines to reach the lane. Where wires existed, evenings changed shape. A single ceiling light pushed back the dark and kept sewing, reading, and card games going after supper. Appliances crept in one by one. The earliest triumph was the electric iron. It replaced a heavy chunk of cast iron that had to sit on a hot stove. With a cord and a steady plate, the ironing pile shrank faster and burned fewer shirts. Vacuum cleaners followed in better-off homes. They were loud, clumsy, and wonderful compared with hauling rugs outside and beating dust into the alley. Washing machines arrived with wringer rollers that could catch a cuff if you were careless. Still, they cut hours off a job that once meant a full day at a tub. Refrigeration sat at the edge of reach. Many families still met the iceman at the door and slid a block into an icebox to keep milk cool. Those who could afford an electric fridge boasted about it like a new car. Fewer trips to the grocery, safer leftovers, summer meals that stayed fresh long enough for a late return from work. Kitchens began to look less like workshops and more like rooms where you could talk while food simmered. Canned goods and better packaging partnered with the gadgets. Tinned tomatoes joined winter stews. Coffee came ground and sealed. Shortening arrived in clean tubs that doubled as storage. Each shortcut gave back minutes that had once belonged to the stove, the pump, and the washboard. Phones stitched neighborhoods together. In big cities, a handset could sit on a hallway table with a paper list of numbers. Operators connected calls by name or exchange. Party lines were common outside cities. That meant shared wires, shared rings, and the chance that a neighbor might quietly listen to the gossip you did not mean to share. Emergencies found help faster, and businesses settled orders without waiting for the post. 11. Radio in the living room. Most homes picked a spot of honor for the set. Maybe on a lace runner, maybe on a sturdy table near the couch. The cabinet looked like furniture, with a polished face and warm grill cloth. When the tubes heated, a faint glow formed inside, and a soft hum promised company. Someone turned the big dial slowly, chasing a clear signal through a fog of static until a voice found the room. Evenings formed a new ritual. Supper plates dried on the rack while families gathered within arm's reach of the speaker. News came first, read by a steady voice that sounded like it knew you. Then a crooner filled the parlor. A comedy bit followed, and the punchline reached every house on the block at the same second. Kids lay on the rug and traced patterns in the nap while sound effects turned the radio into a train, a thunderstorm, or a creaking door. Sports found a larger crowd. Baseball broadcasts let a farm kitchen in Iowa keep the same count as a barbershop in Newark. The crack of the bat did not come through, but the announcer's rhythm did, and everyone could feel when a fly ball carried deep. College football scores jumped across the country, faster than any train ever could. On big nights, neighbors slipped in and stood in the doorway to catch the last inning. Advertising learned to sing. Jingles stuck in heads all week and sent shoppers to specific counters on Saturday. Sponsors paid for programs and wove their names into jokes and story breaks. A cake mix brand promised a lighter crumb. A soap company bought a whole serial drama and aimed it at housewives who folded laundry during the broadcast. The word soap opera made sense. The radio is also connected to emergencies. Storm warnings reached boats and fields. Missing persons notices aired after the news. Charity drives set goals and hit them while listeners dropped coins into jars on kitchen counters. Churches announced suppers. Unions gave meeting times. City halls tested sirens and asked for calm. Not every set was new. Many families bought used consoles or assembled kits from magazines. A teen with a knack for soldering could make a crystal set work with a bit of wire, a galena rock, and patience. Headphones clamped tight, and a distant station whispered in like a secret. 12. Silent films to talkies. Step into a grand theater in 1925, and your eyes go up first. Velvet curtains, painted ceilings, and ushers in neat uniforms. A small orchestra tunes in the pit. The lights sink. A projector beam cuts the dark, and faces bloom on the screen. Title cards do the talking. A pianist follows the mood, and the whole room breathes at the same pace. People laugh together without hearing a word. Studios built worlds to match the demand. Weekly programs mixed a feature with a newsreel and a short. Comedy teams flipped pies. Melodramas wrung out handkerchiefs. Fan magazines taught readers which hat Clara Bow wore and how Rudolph Valentino held a gaze. Movie houses felt like palaces for everyone, not only the rich, because a ticket often cost a quarter, and the show delivered far more than that. Then sound walked in and pulled the rug. In 1927, the jazz singer reached audiences through speakers and set a new measure for surprise. Al Jolson looked up from the piano and said, "You ain't heard nothing yet." And it felt true. At first, the system put sound on a disc. Projectionists lined up the record and reel and prayed the sync held. Sound on film soon took over and solved that headache, but it forced a rebuild across the country. Theaters installed amplifiers, cables, and new booths. Owners took loans, closed for weeks, and reopened with a marquee that promised talking pictures inside. The work behind the camera changed overnight. Movie cameras were loud, so crews parked them in padded boxes. Microphones were touchy, so actors learned to plant their feet and pitch lines to a hidden spot. Directors who had painted with motion learned to paint with voices. Some silent stars crossed the bridge smoothly. Others struggled with accent, diction, or stage fright. A few faces faded from posters, and new names rose on sound alone. Music stayed important. Giant theater organs lost jobs to recorded tracks, but composers wrote cues that stuck in your head for days. Newsreels gained live voices. Boxing rounds and election nights felt closer because you could hear the crowd and the candidates. Censors took fresh interest. By 1930, the Hayes office pushed rules on what could be seen and said, and writers worked within those lines while trying to keep stories sharp. 13. Jazz, dances, and late nights follow the sound. A cornet cuts through street noise, a drum snaps on 2 and 4, and a piano walks the left hand like steady shoes on pavement. Bands stitched that feel together from blues, ragtime, and church rhythms, then turned it loose in clubs from New Orleans to Chicago to Harlem. Listeners called it hot. Dancers called it perfect. Steps changed as the beat did. The The Charleston swung into ballrooms around 1923 with sharp kicks and swivel ankles that worked best with shorter skirts. A few years later, the black bottom arrived with hip shakes that scandal sheets loved to scold. Toward the decade's end, young Harlem dancers built breaks and aerial ideas that would soon feed the Lindy. The Savoy Ballroom opened in 1926 with a polished floor and a mixed crowd that paid for tickets, not for color lines. House bands battled for bragging rights. When the drummer dropped accents just behind a chorus, the whole floor seemed to float for a breath before landing again. Names traveled with the records. Louis Armstrong lifted solos into the spotlight and taught players how to tell a story without words. Duke Ellington painted with voicings that felt like city lights seen from a taxi at midnight. Bessie Smith turned hard luck into strength that reached the back row. A 78 RPM disc held 3 minutes to a side, so bands learned to make each chorus count. Victrolas sat in parlors next to family photos, and kids copied riffs until the needle dulled. Not everyone cheered. Pastors preached against close holds and late hours. School boards banned certain steps at gym socials. Police raided clubs for liquor, not for tempo. Yet the two often met in the same room. Even so, the music kept finding legal stages. Theater circuits booked touring bands. Hotel ballrooms sold tickets for tea dances where the strongest drink was coffee, but the rhythm stayed true. Dance marathons drew crowds for a different reason. Couples circled for days with only short breaks, hoping for rent money or a sponsor's prize. It looked like sport and felt like survival. A band on a small riser played soft enough to spare feet, loud enough to keep sleepy, legs honest. 14. After the vote, women's work and everyday power. August 1920 turned a key. The 19th Amendment became law, and women could cast ballots from Maine to California. Poll workers learned new rhythms as mothers with toddlers, shop clerks in aprons, and teachers with chalk on their cuffs lined up with folded notes of candidates' names. The vote did not fix paychecks or respect overnight, yet it gave a tool that could not be taken back at the kitchen table. Daytime life shifted in quieter ways. Offices hired armies of stenographers, bookkeepers, and typists who could run a Remington blindfolded and take dictation at furious speed. Telephone exchanges filled with young operators who knew half the town by voice. Department stores pulled in saleswomen who learned fabrics, sizes, and how to keep a line moving during a Saturday crush. Teaching remained one of the largest professions open to women, though many districts pushed a marriage bar that ended a contract as soon as a wedding ring appeared. Factories welcomed women in light assembly, food packing, and garment work. The pay gap was stubborn. The same hands that hit quota often brought home smaller envelopes than male co-workers. Unions debated how to include new members. Some did the right thing and issued cards without fuss. Others placed obstacles that had nothing to do with skill. Home technology trimmed chore time, which opened doors. A washing machine with a wringer turned a 10-hour laundry day into 3 or 4. A decent vacuum pulled dust from rugs without a trip to the clothesline. Canned goods, better ovens, and improved stoves cut prep time. Those hours became evening classes, church committee work, or a second shift that brought in extra money for rent and shoes. Style spoke loudly about confidence. Bobbed hair needed regular trims, which sent women into barbershops that once catered only to men. Hemlines rose to the calf or the knee by mid-decade, making movement easier. Corsets loosened, then vanished for many. Sensible heels walked city blocks at lunch, while beaded dresses came out for club nights and lodge banquets. Powder compacts and lipstick tubes slipped into handbags and appeared on streetcars without apology. 15. The Great Migration, block by block. Between 1915 and the late 1920s, trains carried black families from southern depots to northern stations with suitcases tied with rope. A Pullman porter might whisper which factory was hiring in Chicago or where to find a clean room in Detroit. Newspapers like the Chicago Defender printed train times, job leads, and letters from cousins who had already made the move. First stops were crowded districts with names that still echo: Harlem, Bronzeville, Paradise Valley. The rent was high and the rooms were small, but the streets felt alive. Churches doubled as job centers. Pastors kept lists of openings at stockyards, foundries, laundries, and hotels. Mutual aid groups collected dues and delivered groceries when a paycheck stalled. Barbershops and beauty parlors traded news faster than any wire service. Work brought pride and strain in equal measure. Steel mills paid better than cotton fields, yet shifts ran long, and the heat punished lungs. Automobile plants offered steady envelopes, though the dirtiest departments were often the only doorway open. Women found wages in domestic service, cafeteria lines, and sewing rooms. Some opened their own kitchens on weekends and sold plates of fish or greens to men who missed home cooking. Housing lines were drawn with ink and pressure. Real estate agents steered buyers away. Landlords wrote clauses that barred sales to black families on certain blocks. Crowding followed those rules. To make the rent, tenants threw rent parties with a phonograph on a chair, a pot of stew on the stove, and a hat by the door for coins. A strong piano player could keep a landlord patient for another month. Culture rose from the grind. Harlem cafes booked poets on weeknights and bands on Saturdays. Small presses printed verse that sounded like the street outside. Photographers set up studios and sold portraits to workers in their Sunday best. Painters used city lights and sharp angles. The arts gave shape to a new voice that would not fit inside the old frame. 16. Department stores, window displays, and the Saturday crowd. Start at the glass. Big windows hold little worlds that change with the season. A snow scene with tiny skaters in January. A spring table set with pale china, and a vase that looks like a hotel lobby. Window dressers work at night, so the reveal feels fresh at dawn. By 9, streetcars empty a wave of shoppers onto the curb. Inside, a store is a city with its own map. A ground floor for gloves, perfume, and the newest stockings. Elevators with uniformed operators who call out floors like station masters. Furniture is higher up because heavy pieces travel by freight lift. Toylands that light up small faces. A tea room where chicken salad and a pot of strong coffee rest tired feet. If you forget where you left your package, a parcel check ticket points you home. Prices pull people from every block. Chain stores sell canned peaches and soap by the crate, but the department store sells the feeling that your week went well. Charge plates appear at service desks for trusted customers. Layaway counters hold a dress behind a numbered tag, while wages catch up over a few Fridays. Thursday nights run late for clerks, and for anyone who cannot get there before 5. The ritual looks simple, but it took new systems to make it work. Pneumatic tubes carry receipts from counters to upstairs offices with a soft rush of air. Cashier girls balance drawers with pencils dull from use. Buyers study ledgers and send telegrams to mills and factories. Freight doors swallow crates at dawn. Stock boys learn the maze behind the walls where the public never walks. Rules shape behavior. No smoking beyond the lobby. Keep. Children close on the escalator. Hats off in the tea room. Floor walkers move like quiet traffic cops, steering returns to the correct desk and smoothing small frictions before they turn into scenes. Good stores hire bilingual clerks for neighborhoods with many tongues. A patient answer keeps a customer longer than any advertisement. Holidays turn steady business into a spectacle. Thanksgiving brings the first sight of Santa, and parents plan routes to reach him with the shortest wait. Wrapping counters snap ribbon, tie neat bows, and stamp gold seals that say the store name with pride. The last week before Christmas makes overtime feel like a test of will, but the hum never grows harsh. People let themselves be pleased. 17. A 1920 school day ring the handbell, and 30 voices find seats. In a one-room school on a country road, first graders share space with teenagers who can lift a feed sack. Desks march in rows by size. The blackboard keeps a running list of spelling words, long division, and the date in careful cursive. One teacher runs the whole show. She starts the small ones on phonics, sets the older group to diagram sentences, and calls a boy to the front to work a fraction problem while she checks copybooks. Heat comes from a coal stove. The bucket on the stand holds a dipper that everyone uses. On a windy day, the chalk dust drifts like a veil. Lunch is plain and good. Bread with apple butter. A wedge of cheese. Maybe a jar of pickles passed down the row. Recess is tag, a rag ball game, or jumping rope if someone remembered to bring one. Older boys split kindling for the stove or sweep the floor before heading home. Attendance dips at harvest. Nobody argues. Corn does not wait, and neither do cows. Report cards travel in folded envelopes that parents sign with a pencil or a steady X. Town schools feel different. More rooms, more teachers, and a bell that comes from a wall clock wired to a master panel. High schools add chemistry benches, globes, and gym class in a real hall. Latin still has fans. Civics grows in the schedule as teachers try to match a fast city to responsible voters. Clubs meet after the last bell. Debate, glee, and camera groups give shy kids a place to stand. Football teams in wool sweaters play on lumpy fields, while a brass band learns a fight song from sheet music smudged by rain. Crowded neighborhoods teach hard lessons. Immigrant children learn English at speed from teachers who mix patience with rules. Some schools run Americanization nights for parents who want practice and a friendly face. Black students in many states attend separate buildings by law, with hand-me-down readers and older lab gear. In cities that take more care, a few integrated classrooms appear, but the path is uneven, and the fights are real. 18. Prohibition, bootleg jobs, and a password at the door. Start with the date on the calendar. January 17th, 1920. Breweries go quiet, saloons lock their doors, and the country learns a new word for dry. The 8th Amendment and the Volstead Act tell bartenders to find other work. They do, only not in daylight. Alcohol does not disappear. It changes hands, routes, and recipes. A new supply chain clicks into place. Farmers with extra corn mash sell to a cousin who knows a man with a coil of copper pipe. In backwoods shacks, stills cough out white lightning that can strip paint if you are careless. In cities, chemists filter industrial alcohol to make it drinkable. Freight moves at night in panel trucks that wear meat company logos. On the coast, sleek boats called rum runners meet larger ships offshore. They load cases, kill the lights, and race for hidden coves while a lookout watches for a cutter on the horizon. Money lures muscle. Gangs scale up from neighborhood toughs to organized crews with ledgers and payrolls. A boss rents a warehouse, hires drivers, buys judges, and keeps maps of police beats on the wall. Al Capone becomes a household name not because people see his face, but because his beer always arrives and his enemies do not last. Shootings make headlines. Bribery keeps many doors open. On the customer side, the night takes on a secret shine. A barber whispers a location. A seamstress writes a phrase on a scrap of paper. You knock twice, give the password, and step into a room that feels like a celebration of risk. A jazz trio warms the air. Ladies wear short hems and bright lipstick. Men loosen collars and try the steps they learned from a newsreel. The bartender pours from unlabeled bottles into thick glasses. If trouble comes, a switch flips. The bar spins and the bottles vanish into the wall. Women find new roles in this underground economy. Some run rooms with sharp books and sharp eyes, choosing who gets in and who does not. Others tend bars, sing, or keep accounts that would impress a bank clerk. The mix of guests becomes wider than any old saloon. Office clerks, ball players, movie extras, porters, and debutantes share tables and talk louder than they planned. 19. Doctors, medicines, and survival odds. Open a 1920s doctor's bag, and you find a world in between eras: a stethoscope, thermometer, ether mask, syringes in a metal case, and a small bottle of morphine. Many doctors still make house calls. They climb stairs, warm their hands at a stove, and check a child by lamplight. Payment can be cash, a chicken, or a promise written in a careful hand. Hospitals are changing fast. City charity wards hold rows of iron beds and white sheets. Private rooms exist, but only for families who can afford them. Segregation is common in many states. Nurses train in strict programs, learn sterile technique, and keep charts that would shame some doctors for neatness. X-rays help find broken bones and hidden bullets. Operating rooms are brighter, cleaner, and better supplied than a decade before. The numbers tell a hard truth. Life expectancy hovers in the mid-50s. Heart disease takes many lives. Pneumonia and tuberculosis are constant threats. In the early part of the decade, maternal death rates were shockingly high, hundreds per 100,000 births. Midwives work with skill, yet infections and hemorrhage can turn a normal delivery into grief in minutes. Baby footprinting begins in some maternity wards for identification, a small ritual in a risky time. New science brings hope. In 1921 and 1922, insulin turned diabetes from a swift death sentence into a condition people could live with. Antitoxins and growing vaccine programs cut diphtheria deaths. Public health officers chase clean water, pasteurized milk, and better sewers. These dull projects save more lives than any single miracle drug. What is missing matters. Penicillin was discovered in a lab, but nobody can use it yet. Sulfa drugs are still years away. For infections, doctors lean on rest, isolation, and luck. Patent medicines try to fill the gap. Bottles on drugstore shelves promise cures with loud labels and vague claims. The 1906 Food and Drug Law slowed the worst of the snake oil trade, but slick ads still tempt the desperate. Pharmacies serve as clinics, newsstands, and soda fountains. A pharmacist counts powders into capsules, then pulls 2 stools for a couple who want a phosphate in 5 minutes of quiet. During Prohibition, physicians wrote whiskey prescriptions for medicinal needs, legitimate in form, flexible in practice. 20. On the line and at the desk. Morning starts with a clock. In factories, men and women join a short shuffle at the time clock, slide a card, and hear the punch that proves they are on the company's time. In offices, clerks hang coats, set a pencil beside a blotter, and wait for the first stack of forms. 2 worlds share one goal: keep the work moving. On the line, stations sit shoulder to shoulder. An engine block creeps past on a chain. A worker tightens 4 bolts every time without pause. Another checks clearances with a feeler gauge that lives in a pocket. Foremen watch the pace. Speed-ups arrive with a nod and a small turn of a lever. Hands blister in the first week, then harden. Cotton gloves help, but not much. Earplugs are rare. Rags tied around noses when grinding dust turns the air gray. Safety rules exist on posters. The best rule is your own habit of looking twice before you reach. Lunch comes out of a pail. Sandwich, apple, piece of pie wrapped in wax paper. Coffee from a bottle warmed near a steam line. Workers trade jokes and tips. File the burr or it will cut you. Keep a spare wrench under the mat. Do not trust that conveyor switch unless you see it locked out. Wages feel better than farm pay, but the week is long and so is the rent list. Unions pass leaflets at gates. Some companies offer clubhouses and ball fields to keep the leaflets out. Office work has its own rhythm. Typewriters chatter like rain on a roof. Carbon paper makes triplicate copies that stain fingertips purple. Stenographers take dictation in shorthand at a pace that would shame most men in neckties. Bookkeepers run adding machines that thrum and ring at the totals. The mailroom brings orders before noon. Phones ring from distant exchanges, and operators connect buyers to sellers faster than the post ever could. 21. The catalog on the kitchen table picture. A thick book landing with a soft thud beside the salt. The cover shows a smiling family and a promise in big letters. Inside are pages of coats, stoves, tools, rugs, phonographs, and a watch that swears to keep time better than the town clock. Sears and Montgomery Ward turn a farmhouse table into a store. Rural free delivery and parcel post make the trick possible. The mail comes to the box at the lane instead of waiting at the depot. Order forms travel out, crates travel back. A letter with $3 bills buys a new dress pattern. A money order pays for a pump that saves a back. The postman knows which homes are waiting for what and gives a nod when a long crate finally arrives. Families shop with a pencil. Mother circles the curtains with lace that will make the front room look like a photograph. Father marks a brace and bit set that does not slip. Children vote for the sled, the tin train, or the tall illustrated Bible with gold edges. Prices are printed, sizes listed, and the small print says exactly how many days to expect. If something goes wrong, a return slip sits tucked near the staples. The catalog is also a teacher. It names fabrics and shows how to measure feet. It explains why a certain plowshare suits sandy soil. It compares 2 oil lamps and tells how many hours each wick will burn on a fill. Even if a family cannot buy this month, they learn what is out there and what to plan for when the harvest sells. Some orders are bigger than a box. House kits arrive by rail, marked and counted, with plans folded in a heavy envelope. Pre-cut lumber, windows, shingles, and nails come bundled by room. A 4-square or a bungalow rises from a pile of numbered boards if you can read a blueprint and borrow a few strong backs for a Saturday. Neighbors come with hammers. By dusk, a roofline makes sense against the sky. Stores in town notice. They stock what the catalog cannot ship fast or cheaply. Fresh fruit, a pair of shoes tried on for fit, a bolt of calico that looks different in real light. The 2 worlds learn to live side by side. 22. 2-lane highways, filling stations, and tourist cabins. Unroll a road map from a glove box, and you see a web of thin lines. State routes, county connectors, and a bold U.S. highway number cutting across 3 states. Pavement spreads each season. Crews pour concrete in panels, score joints, and set wooden forms that leave a clean edge. Where the surface ends, cars nose onto graded gravel and keep going anyway, dust trailing like a flag. Gas stations learn how to catch the eye. A bright canopy, clean pumps, and a uniformed attendant who knows every cap and dipstick. He wipes the windshield with a practice date, checks the tires by thumb, and asks about the last oil change. Restrooms matter. A neat tile room brings repeat customers, so owners scrub early and late. Some stations sell road maps for a nickel and draw a pencil line to your turn so you cannot miss it. Hunger meets the roadside. Diners park a stainless steel car on a concrete pad and open at dawn. Coffee is strong, cups are thick, and the griddle talks all day. A short menu keeps the pace quick. Eggs, hot cakes, stew, pie under glass, and a plate lunch that fills the seat of a trucker and a family of 4 without straining a purse. Waitresses keep names in their heads and orders in their right hands. Nightfall changes the search. Before big motels, families looked for tourist cabins set in a row behind a neon vacancy sign. $10 can buy a small duet of rooms, a cot for the youngest, a washstand, and a bare bulb that makes moths dance. Some places offer a small garage between cabins so a car can sleep out of the weather. Mom boils water on a hot plate for cocoa. Dad locks the Ford and turns the key in a door that actually belongs to them for the night. That privacy feels like a luxury after miles of public spaces. Road rules grow with the miles. Painted center lines appear. Speed signs go up at town limits. Patrolmen in boots and leather coats flag drivers who forget themselves on long, straight stretches. Tire blowouts teach spare changing on the shoulder. Radiators boil on steep grades, so canvas water bags hang from bumpers on desert runs. 23. Saturday heroes. Ballparks, prize fights, and front room radios. Pick a Saturday on the calendar and follow the crowd. A streetcar clanks toward the ballpark with straw hats jammed shoulder to shoulder. Vendors board with sacks of peanuts and a patter that never stops. The gate clicks, the bleachers creak, and the infield looks like a tablecloth ironed flat. Down the first baseline, boys lean through the fence to chase foul balls with a leap that feels like flight. Baseball sets the pace for summer. Babe Ruth turns a swing into theater. Hips first, hands last, eyes already measuring the right field wall. A low fastball leaves like it was late for a train. The sound is wooden and perfect. People stand before they know they have stood. Box scores arrive in the evening paper, but the radio makes the drama live. An announcer's cadence paints the diamond for kitchen listeners who set forks down mid-bite when the count runs full. Boxing claims the nights. Smoke hangs under the rafters at the arena, thick enough to write your name in it. The bell lifts a chill across shoulders. Footwork whispers on rosin dust. A left jab pecks like a metronome until the right crosses clean. Champions become legends street by street. Jack Dempsey brings thunder. Gene Tunney brings patience and angles. Fights spill out of the building on broadcast night. Barbershops put a set in the window so a crowd can stand on the sidewalk and keep the rounds together in their heads. College football earns new believers each fall. Wool sweaters, leather helmets, chalk lines that fade in rain, and bands that hit the fight song on the exact beat of the kickoff. Rules had been rewritten to save lives a decade earlier, and the forward pass finally feels less like a trick and more like a plan. Thanksgiving rivalries pull cousins to the same porch to argue plays until the pumpkin pie cools. Local heroes matter as much as national ones. A high school sprinter who floats on cinders, a mill worker who pitches on Sundays and throws a curve that falls like a trap door. Newspapers give them a column inch, neighbors give them a nod, and kids try to match their stride on the walk to school. 24. Ice boxes, milk bottles, and supper. At 6, open the kitchen door, and the first sound is the Iceman's tongs. He swings a block onto his shoulder, follows chalk marks on the back step that say 25 or 50, and slides the ice into the top of a white cabinet. Cold drips into a pan you must empty before it overflows. Inside sit butter, yesterday's pie, and a bottle of pickles in brine. Electric refrigerators are starting to appear in city ads, but most homes keep food safe with ice, shade, and good habits. Groceries move by foot and by wagon. A corner store knows your name and the page in the ledger where your tally lives until payday. Sugar comes in a sack tied with a string. Flour is weighed on a scale with brass weights. The butcher wraps the chops in brown paper and adds a soup bone because you asked for one with a smile. Milk arrives at dawn in glass bottles with cardboard caps. Pasteurization is more common now, and mothers watch for the dairy name they trust most. Stoves tell how the house is built. Coal ranges warm the whole room, bake steady bread, and blacken kettles that never quite come clean. Gas stoves spread through towns, with blue flames that can be tamed in a second. A percolator murmurs on a back burner. The kettle whistles before anyone is truly awake. A cast iron skillet earns its shine from bacon, corn cakes, and fried apples on chilly mornings. Canning days fill late summer. Jars are sterilized in boiling water. Peaches slip their skins and slide into syrup. Green beans line up like little soldiers. A table creaks under rows of lids that ping as they seal. Those shelves will carry a family through winter when the garden sleeps and the price of produce climbs at the market. Packages change menus. Cereal boxes make quick breakfasts for school days. Gelatin desserts wobble at church suppers, crowned with canned pineapple or flaked coconut. Shortening promises flakier crusts than lard without the strong taste. Coffee is strong. Tea appears with lemon for guests. Soda fountains mix phosphates and cherry syrups for a small treat after errands. 25. Switches, wires, and first electric gadgets. Flip a wall switch in a city flat, and a bare bulb blooms like sunrise in a jar. That simple click still feels new in many blocks. Earlier homes used gas jets or kerosene lamps. Now thin cords snake along baseboards to table lamps with tassels, and ceilings hold porcelain sockets with pull chains that snap against your knuckles if you tug too hard. Meter readers climb stairs each month, jot a number, and tip their caps on the way down. The wiring hides in plaster or runs on little ceramic knobs across open joists in the cellar. Fuses live in a small box that smells faintly of warm dust. Blow one, and the kitchen goes dark. A spare rides in the sugar bowl because it is always close at hand. Care lives in the rules. Everyone learns fast. Do not overload a plug. Keep wet hands away. Unplug the iron when you answer the door. New appliances promise time and comfort. An electric iron erases the worst part of laundry day and smooths collars that used to fight back. A pop-up toaster finds a home beside the bread box. Early models brown one side at a time and demand you watch closely or lose breakfast to smoke. Percolators bubble on counters and fill rooms with a strong smell that says the day can start. Vacuum cleaners arrive with canvas bags and belt drives that whir like small machines from a factory, but lift grit that brooms leave behind. Bigger helpers cost more. Wringer washers stand like stout soldiers on wash day with a tub, an agitator, and two rubber rollers that squeeze water into a waiting bucket. Mothers warn children to keep their fingers clear. Early refrigerators show up in higher income homes, heavy as safes, with a humming box on top and shelves that turn milk cold without melting ice. Most families still rely on an icebox, yet ads make the future feel near. Rural neighbors watch this glow from a distance. Farmhouses burn kerosene and set reflectors behind lamps to stretch light across tables. A few buy small wind chargers that feed batteries for a single bulb or a radio after chores. City cousins write letters about how a switch turns evening to daytime and how reading after supper no longer ruins eyes. Those letters sound like magic. 26. Radio night in the front room. Start with the wire. A long copper lead runs from a second-floor window to a tree in the yard, tight as a violin string. Inside, a crystal set sits on a breadboard with a slider that finds stations by touch. Families who can spend more buy a cabinet set that stands like a small dresser, with glowing dials and a cloth speaker that breathes voices into the room. Either way, the front room turns into a small theater after supper. Schedules live in the newspaper. Someone circles times for ball scores, farm reports, and a comedy that makes the oldest uncle laugh first. At the hour, a station tone chimes, and a voice names call letters with pride. KDKA in Pittsburgh became famous for early broadcasts, and copycats grew by the month. By the middle of the decade, hundreds of stations stitched coast to coast, listening into a shared habit. The sound carries more than music. Market. News reaches towns before the morning paper. Weather warnings help farmers plan chores. Preachers deliver short sermons to people who could not make it to church because of rain or tired feet. A barn dance from Nashville picks up fiddles and jokes and sends them north under the name that will later become the Grand Ole Opry. Jazz bands play hotel ballrooms, and the microphones grab the room's echo so well that listeners feel the glassware. Sponsors learn to talk without pushing. A flour mill pays for a string band and gets a mention that sounds like a neighbor's recommendation. Soap companies underwrite daytime serials that mothers follow as they mend and fold. The term soap opera will come later, but the pattern begins here. Sound effects crews make rain with dried peas, hoofbeats with coconut shells, and door knocks with a block that never misses. Young tinkerers build sets from kits. They wind coils, solder joints, and test alignment with a cat's whisker on a Galena crystal until a whisper rises from the headphones. When money allows, the family upgrades to a battery eliminator so nobody has to lug heavy cells to the hardware store for charging. City blocks hum lightly at night as more houses add sets, and streetlights glow on the walk home. 27. Party lines, operators, and the magic of number please. Lift a black handset, and a living voice answers, "Number please." In most towns, the call starts with an operator at a cord switchboard, sleeves rolled, eyes on a field of tiny lights. She wears a headset, pulls a cord, and plugs you to your neighbor, the grocer, or the undertaker, without losing her place. Regulars need only a name. Strangers get the number from a fresh phone book that smells of ink and soft paper. Rural families share party lines. 4 or 8 homes hang on one wire that runs along fence posts. Each household has a ring pattern, like 2 short and a long. Bells sing different rhythms all day. If you lift the receiver during someone else's call, you hear voices. Etiquette says, hang up. Curiosity does not always obey. Folks learn to keep gossip gentle and keep emergencies brief so everyone can get through. City service feels smoother and faster. Exchanges carry names like Plaza, Chelsea, or Lakeview. You tell the operator Plaza 4829 and wait for the click, a faint hum. Then a friend's hello. Long-distance travel takes planning. A caller gives the town and state, then waits while operators across several boards work the route. Person-to-person costs more, but saves money if the intended party's not home. Night rates come cheaper after 7. Family time calls so good news travels for fewer coins. The instrument itself is sturdy and plain. A candlestick phone stands on a hall table with a seat nearby for long chats. Newer desk sets put the mouthpiece and receiver together. Children learn to speak clearly and say please. Parents teach the rules about messages. Write it down with the time and read it back, or you will forget who said what to whom. Phones knit businesses together. A shop can confirm stock in minutes. A factory foreman can call for a rush order of bearings before a line sits idle. Doctors keep night bells near their beds. Midwives do the same. Operators notice trouble. If a call drops and the line stays open, she may ring the sheriff or a neighbor to look in on an elderly subscriber. 28. Picture palaces, newsreels, and the first talkies. Start at the sidewalk. A marquee throws light on the crowd, each bulb a tiny sun. An usher in a neat jacket opens the door with a gloved hand. Inside, carpet swallows footsteps, and a chandelier makes everyone lift their chin. Movie houses are built to awe. Even small towns get velvet curtains, plaster vines on the walls, and an organ that can rumble like thunder or sing like a bird. Programs run in parts. A cartoon warms the room. A newsreel follows with flags snapping on battleships. A mayor cutting a ribbon, boxers grinning with split lips, and a date printed on the last frame. Then comes the serial chapter with a cliff that leaves the hero tied to a track or trapped in a runaway car. Kids beg for next Saturday before the lights come up. After that, the feature takes its time. Silent pictures teach a new grammar. Faces do the talking. Title cards carry the rest. A good pianist follows the mood with hands that never stall. In larger houses, a full pit orchestra reads cues under the beam of a conductor's stick. Comedies hit hard and clean. A kick line of mishaps. A hat that will not stay put. A walk that makes an entire row wheeze with laughter. Melodramas invite tears that people wipe with the hems of handkerchiefs and pretend are not there. Studios mint stars. Photoplay magazines place their faces on drugstore racks. Haircuts and dresses move from screens to sidewalks in a season. Valentino sells the idea of a gaze that stops time. Clara Bow turns a wink into a national habit. Fans trade postcards with glossy signatures and keep ticket stubs in cigar boxes for years. Then, 1927 breaks the old spell. The jazz singer speaks, and a line becomes legend. You ain't heard nothing yet. Talkies sweep the country faster than projectors can be refit. Some silent favorites do not cross the gap. Accents surprise people. Voices sit too high or too rough. New actors arrive with radio timing and crisp diction. House rules keep order. No hats during the show. No boots on the seat in front. Ushers patrol aisles with small flashlights and a way of clearing whispers with a look. Balcony for teenagers, main floor for families, front rows for those who like to feel the story at arm's length. 29. Morning papers, street editions, and magazines on the parlor table dawn starts the press. Huge rollers take ink like a thirst and stamp columns that smell like metal and turpentine. Bundles drop with a thud at the back door. Boys fold sheets into tight birds and ride off with canvas bags slung across their chests. A good throw lands on a porch without waking the dog. If a storm hits, the paper tucks into the screen door so the headlines stay dry. Breakfast has a ritual. The front page sits beside the coffee cup. Headlines shout in a type big enough to read across the room. Below, neat columns carry the city's heartbeat. Shipping arrivals, court notices, births, deaths, and the box score from last night. Editorials talk tough or smooth, depending on the publisher. A cartoonist gets away with saying what a politician cannot. Letters to the editor scold and praise in equal measure. City streets get an extra rhythm at noon. Newsboys call out extra when something big breaks. A subhead updates totals after a fire, a strike, or an election count that ran past midnight. Commuters grab a copy for the streetcar ride. The sheet folds into force and opens to the right column without creasing a stranger's hat. Wire services knit the country together. AP and United Press push bulletins across leased lines. In the newsroom, a copy desk trims, writes a headline, and sends the story to a linotype operator who turns words into hot lead. The metal slugs clink into trays. A foreman locks a page form with a mallet and a smile that says the page will hold. Magazines build slower pleasures. The Saturday Evening Post brings bright covers that sit on the parlor table for a week. Ladies' Home Journal shows new dress patterns in kitchens with tidy shelves. National Geographic carries photographs that hold the eye when a house goes quiet after supper. Pulp magazines stack on drugstore racks with air stories, detectives, and a splash of color that kids admire, even if parents shake their heads. Advertising shares the space and shapes dreams. A full page shows a car with a long hood and a family that looks rested. Soap promises a cleaner collar and better chances at the dance. Stove makers draw cutaway views that explain efficiency with arrows and tidy flames. People read the copy aloud and argue which claim seems honest. 30. What people wore. Work boots, Sunday best, and nightlife shine. Open a closet in 1925 and you see a life divided by purpose. Weekday clothes first. Factory men grab denim overalls or heavy twill trousers. A chambray shirt, suspenders, and boots oiled to keep out grit. A cap keeps shavings from hair. Farmers pull on bibs with deep pockets, a bandana for sweat, and a coat lined with blanket cloth when dawn bites. Office clerks button stiff collars, tie narrow neckties, and slip into lace-up Oxfords, shined on a newspaper spread across the floor. Women plan by task, too. Housework asks for a house dress in printed cotton and an apron with a pocket for clothespins and a pencil. Shopping trips get a skirt that hangs mid-calf, a blouse with a soft collar, and low heels that can stand a trolley ride. In mills and shops, many women wear smocks to save their good clothes and pin their hair up tight, a simple safety rule that keeps it clear of belts and gears. Underlayers set the silhouette. Corsets fade, replaced by lighter girdles and step-ins that allow easier movement. Stockings are silk if you can afford them, rayon if you cannot, held by garters that leave faint marks by evening. Men wear union suits in winter, short-sleeve undershirts in the heat. Laundry day brings long lines of these private items flapping like flags behind row houses. Sunday changes the picture. Church brings out its best coats and hats. Men favor navy or brown suits with a pocket square folded like a small sail. Women tilt cloche hats low, Tie ribbons just so and carry small bags with hankies and a coin purse. Children stand still while mothers straighten collars and check buttons. Photos from these days survive because everyone looked ready for history. Nightlife writes its own dress code. Dance halls glow with beaded dresses that catch light with every turn. Hemlines climb to the knee, a shock to older eyes and a thrill to younger ones. Long beads swing like metronomes. Hair is bobbed, waved, and held with clips that can be felt when the music stops. Men lose the vest, roll shirt sleeves, and wear two-tone shoes polished for the floor.